Hi everyone, the Mature Simmer here. So welcome back. It's early morning now and the pigs are getting dangerously close to food problems, and we've also got some slurry issues. So I'm going to take care of those two things today. If you remember, everything else was fully fertilized. We're 3 months away from these pigs being ready for market, and then we'll go from there. At this point, it looks like, my guess is, we're going to lose this type of pig, and we're just going to continue to kind of get taken over by the German landrace. It is what it is, I guess. And we'll start taking care of this. So the nice thing at this point with the food is basically I just need to, the numbers stay the same. So for the base food, for example, I just need 17,000 to max that out, so that'll be my target, and then 8,500 and so on for the other types of food. So let me get back here, get out and head over to our silo here and get ourselves some sorghum. And let's remember, we can only load up here. Because last time I think I had to run around in circles a bit. So basically like 16,500 or so. And once again, it's one of those where if I overfill, I can always come back and just dump it back in here. Well, I definitely overfilled, so I think I'm just gonna drop a bit. The problem is, probably gonna play a bit of a game here. This is kind of what I normally do with this, because, okay, thinking that should be okay. 16.5. So, if not, it's going to be close. I mean, again, that's the challenge. Is what will happen is if I consume extra capacity in one space, I'm just basically going to then not quite have enough room to max out another crop. But unless I go way, way over on something, it really won't be anything different. I'll probably have to go ahead and do some, additional or earlier fill of the food, maybe, at least the one piece, because I may be in danger of running low somewhere. But if we look, when we get back into the silo, for example, we know we had, 800 liters extra of potatoes. And what that's going to turn into with the extra is, at this point I probably, of the 1,700 liters, I should have a lot less to provide. I think I'm going to hit the trigger. There we go. Alright. I passed over the trigger. So get that in there, and then we'll take a peek. So just under 17,000. But you can see we have 700 liters still, where we did run out of grain. But everybody's still healthy, so grain we ran a little, close on, obviously, but it looks like, at least for now, because we haven't maybe been out of it for that long, maybe it just ran out at the top of the hour, I don't know. But the good news is health is 100%, and it's not as if they dropped in productivity. So we need about 8,500 of wheat. Alright, we'll start there. This fills so fast. Alright, good enough. And this is certainly much faster than buying 32,000 liters of food at the store, driving to get it, loading it up, bringing it back. Sure, then I just dump one trailer, but at this point I've already got, when I deliver this, I'm gonna already have, what, 17 plus 8, so I'm gonna have like 25,000 liters of my food already here. So certainly, you know, pretty quick. And yes, you know, we have to then jump around for others. You know, obviously the potatoes are a little further away. There's stuff like this happening where I'm not always on target to hit the trigger, so forth. So let's not get too close now, since this lets us go. Alright, so then we need 6,800 of the soybeans for protein. And I know we had some, so we'll have to just take a look at what we've got. So we set our target. I'm imagining it's at most 6,500. Oh yeah, 79, so somewhere around 6,500. I think soybeans was right around there. There we go. Ah, shoot. Alright, well, we'll go ahead. We'll give ourselves a little bit of extra soybeans. Going to basically be about 200 liters over where we should be, but it's not worth playing the game. Once again, as we talked about, works pretty cleanly. Obviously, like, you know, I think the reason we have 0 grain and we're fine on others is, you know, exactly that. I probably had a lot less grain as a percentage. You know, maybe I was 1,000 liters short or something, and you know, it was only hundreds of liters short on everything else, and it caught up with me since I let things go so closely. Alright, this is the problem here, is, you know, as you try to go quicker. Am I really hung up on a tree somewhere? Oh goodness, there's one back there. I was like, oh good, I got this great angle. Not with the tree there, I don't. Alright, so let me straighten this out. Now I'm going to have the problem of obviously being close to this one, so I need to be careful there, but now we're past it, and we'll try to line up. Kind of looking at the tracks at this point, because I can't see the trigger point as clearly as I should be able to. I'm not sure I'm going to hit it, but we'll see, I guess. There we go. Alright. I was going to say that'll probably push us away a bit. Alright, and so we know we had about 700 liters of potatoes left. So basically we need about 1,000 liters of that. And then we'll go from there. So, overall, we are looking at, I really haven't thought about this, so I'm kind of going to think through it live with you now. December 6 p.m. was when we fed the pigs last time. We're now here at June 6 a.m., so we're a half a day for sure. So let me focus on filling the potatoes first. Alright, that's good enough to not go over. And then we'll probably be closer on the potatoes being empty, but it's alright. I'm worried I'm going to hit that tree. I think I did, but otherwise I think I was going to hit the silo, so it's damned if I do, damned if I don't. So basically we had January, February, March, April, May. So let's say May at 6 p.m., 5 months. So basically we got 5.5 months out of the pigs at this point. So we were at, I think, 1,052, if I recall, when when I popped in and, you know, took a look here. So I had looked last night. I just didn't look late last night. I knew I was going to be running a bit close. Frankly, I'm not going to lie. It's closer than I would have liked to have been. I mean, we could have very easily run out of food here. You know, I was doing some other things this morning, but decided, well, I better go check. You know, if nothing else, I like to do the time sync early before folks get in so that they, you know, can kind of expect that the server will be ready for them and on time, or relatively on time, when they get in. Alright, there we go with potatoes. And so we're slightly short there. You know, again, the limit was 33,998, so we can fit, you know, another 100 liters of something in here, but at this point, you know, we're low on the grain again, because basically this should be 17,000, we're a couple hundred off. This should be 8,500, we're a couple hundred off, but then, you know, this one's over by almost 200. And then, you know, we're under by 25 of the perfect target there. So, anyway, I've got slurry to work on, so I can continue to do that while I continue to reminisce with you about my thoughts. But the good news is, yeah, I mean, if we really maintain the 5.5 days, because now we basically have 6 a.m. June when we filled up. And then, hold on a second. I think I'm going to try to go one more cycle of tracking, like basically one more batch. And that should, you know, will at least give me some comfort, unless, of course, I get significantly different data points. This is probably way, way too close. I'm sure as I turn here, I'm going to hit that tree now. So yeah, I cut that way more than I wanted. I think this is going to turn into a much more difficult job of parking. Of course, you know, I'm going to semi-fool myself because it'll be like the best parking job I've ever done now. But obviously now it's not. But certainly I'm actually in better shape than I thought. I didn't even think I'd get onto this side of the yard yet. But unless I get significantly different data, you know, at least I can feel, okay, there's some repetitiveness, and then maybe I'll spot check myself kind of when the mood strikes me. Alright. It actually was probably one of the best parking jobs I've done in a long time. So, funny stuff. So now I need to get my tanker to get the slurry. But, yeah, compared to the calculations we did, if you go back to the earlier videos about pig math and what I was thinking here, you know, we're more than double. We're nearly, you know, we're approaching triple the length of time that we thought we'd get out of our crops, which makes me feel a lot better than I did at the end when we were talking. I think the last crop to come off the field was soybeans, if I remember correctly. You know, so when we were doing that harvest, and I kind of did a summation of how I felt. Now we do have to be careful as I go up here because I do have sorghum in the field, so I'm not able to drive quite, well, I'm not able to drive at all as recklessly as I have in times past where I swing around or I bounce into the field. Not unless I want to destroy some crop to go through this. But we've got our sorghum doing its thing, fully harvested. Little gray dead weeds in there. They're harder to see since the sorghum is taller now. But alright, so I am going to do a little bit of my test that I talked about. I'm going to fill this to about 35,000 first. just see how difficult it is to move around. So this is going to take a little bit of extra time today, just because I finally want to get the answer to the question of how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? No, of can I run this maybe with as just a full tanker and just be done in one trip. I would say this is pretty responsive, so we're up to 28 by the time we started to turn around here. Now the challenge is going to be, am I going to have to go all the way to the other end of the field? And I think we've got enough room here where I have the water tanker parked. Now again, there's a little tree there, so maybe we don't have as much room as I thought. But I'm going to try to get myself back in the same direction. It'll work. It'll be ugly, but, you know, it'll work. Just need to be careful when it starts straightening out. Sometimes it snaps to speed. Alright, so I'm going to be a little crazy, and I'm just going to go all the way. And we're just going to try it. Because if I can do this in one tank load, that also makes things easier, because then it's not... Oh. I thought this was a 60,000 liter tank. Well, there goes me. Alright, well... But if nothing else, I mean, we're down to 1,300 liters left, but if I can do one full tank, at least I know, hey, as I'm getting up to 45, 50,000, it's time to run the slurry. Because I can't take the whole thing. But yeah, this is actually not bad. The real test will be coming out of the crossing of the river here and going up on field 8. That's kind of the worst part of this leg, is this hill here. So let's see how bad it gets. Not really that bad. Alright, so we have solved the question. Yes, we can fully load this tanker with pig slop, pig poop, whatever you want to call it. I won't get any more vulgar than that. Try to keep this PG as much as possible. You know, don't know. Pretty sure, just like any YouTuber, I've probably got all ages watching, and certainly don't want folks feeling upset that I'm, you know, just tossing out language that really doesn't have to happen. So, but yeah, so continuing to learn again here, years and years and years on the farm. So as I noted in the first few episodes, as we got on Shellbrook, you know, this is always what I expect. There's always something new, and obviously we've got a giant thing coming up with us here when we finally get precision farming in FSN back here on FS22 servers. That'll be a whole new cycle of probably years of trial and error, trying to figure out the best way to do things. So yeah, Fire was on here, I think yesterday with me. Well, maybe it was 2 days ago. Although no, I think I might have been back on fertilizing the second time when he hopped in. So doing the herbicide, and I went by it again. I noticed it like right as the road was flying by. I'm like, that's where I wanted to be. So obviously that learning is not taking, because we've done this how many times now? At least 5. So clearly it's not sticking with me that we want to go the other way, so that we don't have to continue to go buy all the really expensive equipment that we can damage as we drive through the back entrance to PV here. Alright, so we'll get ourselves unloaded. The nice thing is we'll very clearly know how much we're getting paid for the slurry, because we're not going to have 2 separate loads that we're then doing mental math on. Not that it was that hard, but it's certainly going to be easier to just have the number presented to us. Alright, $1,563 this time. So again, we're not going to get rich off slurry. But we're going to do pretty good. And the nice thing is, within this cycle now, we've fed the pigs, we've dropped off the slurry. Like, it's been, you know, somewhat nothing but profit at this point. So, you know, the next thing, I guess, is I think about my farm financial analysis and really what makes sense, what's the best use of my time. And to some degree, I think regardless, it's always going to be a trade-off of some sort. Just if I want to have animals versus just that I want to be crops, assuming that crops end up kind of showing us, well, it would be better if we just grew sorghum and sold it versus if we grow sorghum and basically store it all for pig food. Because in essence, again, we've got the supplies that are going into the field, and then, you know, at this point we're not buying any pigs, so the pigs generate on their own, the way all living things generate on their own. So, you know, we get baby pigs periodically, and they grow up to be big pigs that we then take to market and basically sell for, you know, a little over $14,000 per 12 pigs, and you know, with the full trailer load, that gets us, you know, $42,000 of pigs. So, and then, you know, and we've got food in between all of that, but you know, the crops aren't getting sold, they're instead being consumed. So the question is, am I getting more production between slurry at 1,500 per trailer load that gets generated, again, about every, no, it probably is longer than 5 days, because what I have figured out is the slurry seems to be 1 liter per 1 liter of food consumed, basically. It really looks, if it's not exactly that, it's very, very close. Because when I was just kind of noticing that at one point, that's what I was seeing as we were watching the food go down. I had emptied it, they consumed 3,000 more liters of food in, you know, some time period, which again, using our other math, would have probably been, you know, 15 hours. And then they'd produce those same 3,000 liters of slurry or so. And again, I wasn't tracking that to verify was it exactly that amount or not. So it might vary a little bit, but it's quite close. So obviously with under 34,000 liters for a full set of food, you know, when I've maxed out my capacity there for feeding, I'm not going to get 51,000 liters of slurry. So I'm taking the slurry to market less often than I'm feeding the pigs. But, you know, the question is basically then between the 42,000 or so, 44,000, I think, that we end up with every time I take a full load of pigs, with the, I think we're running into that, which is alright. It's not like I can't stick out here. Whoops. Just trying to disconnect the hoses, and it just wasn't working. Alright. I'm just going to get this out of the way so I can maneuver a little bit. I'll kind of put it back where I had it, which was over here. At this point, I'm probably not going to need the truck again until harvest time with that trailer that's right next to it, because we're just a few months away from harvest. Well, actually, that's not true. I'm going to need it to transport some pigs. But if we take a look at that again, you know, we see we're going to have a little bit of a challenge here, because unless I want to wait 2 more months, which I may, I mean, it's just 2 months, I'm not going to have 36 pigs to take to market. You know, and I wanted to pop over here to the sty. It's just easier to see the numbers there. We got 108 animals. As you can see, we'll step away so we don't quite hear the pigs oinking as much. But I've got I've got a full pigsty. So I'm back in the situation like these pigs, even if they were to go through a reproduction cycle, which they probably will, are not going to produce pigs. The alternative is if I really wanted to, it's just that there's not really a benefit. It's not as if black pied, or however you say it. I'm saying pied because I think that's how Pied Piper is spelled, and maybe that's partially where they get their name. I have no idea. It likely means some kind of feet. I'm sure it's probably black-footed pig or something in some language, German or whatever. Once again, going off on a tangent, sorry about that. So, but yeah, if I wait, instead of in 3 months taking the pigs, I wait 5 months to take the pigs so that these are also maxed. The difference is I then am, I'm sorry, I'm thinking, I'm looking, because if I take these when they're ready, leave this for the next batch, the thing is basically these and then all of these are going to hit at the same time. So I'm only going to be able to take some. Now again, if I do that, and I really didn't just take these, then the Berkshires will still be on the farm to be able to produce some more Berkshires. And the question becomes, is it worth hanging on to these to keep these? Because otherwise the only way I get these back is if I buy them, which seems ridiculous just to have a mix of pigs. But to some degree it also seems ridiculous to let them sit here just so I have some. I don't know. But it's a game, and that's part of the fun of it, right? Is, having different things around. So, I may just take these 12 when they come due, and then, the question, of course, will be, it depends what reproduction cycle we're on, because the plan might just end up being, and it might not be worth the effort, therefore, to say, all right, I'm going to try to get these to produce, because if they're not ready to go way ahead of everything else, we just may get more German landrace anyway, and I'll have kept them for no reason. So, but anyway, what I could do is do that, and then take basically the 36 landrace that will come due, because I don't know that I'd move 12, although, well, they are 9 months apart, so I might. But then if I do that, I run the risk of these not producing, where if I wait and then take these, I've just got fewer of the other kind. I don't know. It may never work out. So this was a really, really long discussion about nothing. If you stuck with me on that, I thank you immensely. I only wish I could make as much as Seinfeld did talking about nothing, but that's probably not going to happen from talking about nothing with Farming Simulator. So going back to then what the whole original discussion of this was, is the thing to figure out is, can I make more from the crops turning them into pigs? I mean, I guess that's the best way I could say it, where instead of selling the crop, I'm feeding the crop to pigs, and the pigs grow and they turn into money that way. So am I getting more money from my 4 types of crops, just leaving them in the silo and feeding the pigs over time, than I am just selling? And that's really kind of the next level of financial analysis that I'm going to be probably focusing on at this point. Because what I need to determine is, keeping the minimum amount of crops I need, because the timing piece that I'm trying to figure out now helps me start to understand for planning. Like if I know I'm running low on a type, let's say again we're running low on base, and then I say, okay, well, the base I have left I know is going to get me, assuming the 5.5 days we've just seen sticks, it's going to get me 11 days. That means, okay, in a year I need more base. Now, once again, I think if I'm cutting things that close, I run the risk of things conspiring against me, just like in the pigsty, where we're basically breeding out the other types of breeds, even though we started with an even mix of them. I mean, we had, I think 36, 36, and 36 of each type. But somehow German landrace has taken over just because of how things have played out. And so similarly, I may run into an issue where I suddenly have 2 crops that are in an 11-day window, and I've got to plant 2 things, and then I'm either splitting the field like I did before, which means I'm getting less of each crop, which means I'm going to have to grow it sooner anyway, or I'm having a year that I've kind of vowed I'm really not interested in doing, which is I'm planting the whole field and harvesting the whole thing and so forth. So I think the plan would certainly be like look 2-3 years out, because at 5 days, if I'm doing full fields, per group, I should get a lot of days. Because once again, I mean, if you think about, if we stay at this pace, we were looking at like 20 plus game years. I think it was 22 plus game years of potatoes from what we've harvested already. If that now nearly triples, the likelihood is, I mean, I don't know, I guess it's still just a little over 2 actual years of game time, or of lifetime, because it'd be over 60 years of potatoes that we have, which is a lot. And again, we're not quite at 3 times. We're at like 2.5 to 2.5. So maybe it's 50 years, but still, it's a lot, and it's a lot more. And so I won't have to definitely grow a lot of those, but there's just a lot of analysis and figuring out how I want to work through this. So it's actually, this is frankly what I love about this sim. It's, aside from the fact it's kind of relaxing, people might argue that it's repetitive. It certainly is, but you're still doing a lot of that planning and thinking. And so if anybody tells you farming is easy and farmers don't have to be smart or don't have to be businessmen, I think they don't truly understand how to run a farm or anything else. They're just doing it as a hobby versus trying to do it as a business venture. And in essence, that's how I play FSN. It's a lot less about, well, I haven't had these animals, like, I'd like to play with them. I do that other ways. I'll do that in other series. It's just at this point I've been in Farming Simulator enough now, playing it for well over a year, that I kind of feel like I've tried everything, so there is less of that pull, and it's just more, how do I enjoy playing? And so it's these extra things about the game versus the simple mechanics of, what do I do with pigs? How do I make pigs work? Taking it to that next level is just what is fun for me, and that's kind of what I'm working on here. And so thinking that through. So anyway, I could probably go on for another hour about this, because I know me, I'll just keep finding new angles to think about it and talk about it. So rather than continue to bore whoever else is sticking around, and honestly, if you've stuck around, I'm not being respectful to you. Clearly you're not bored, because you're just as excited and just as geeked or nerded out by this as I am, and love to hear someone else noodling over what I'm thinking of doing. So I'm going to go ahead, and we'll have obviously plenty of time over the coming years on the farm to work all that out. But for right now, aside from tracking this next set of feed just to make sure it tracks similarly to the first set, and that we get basically 5.5 months out of it, or are running at the same pace. I may not go all the way till I'm empty to kind of say, yep, it's tracking there. Again, if I go from the 33,000 I have now to the 10 or 8,000, instead of getting all the way down to 1,000, that should be enough. It shouldn't suddenly change so much between from 8,000 to 1,000 that, oh wow, it skewed it 20%. Because at this point I've obviously had pigs cycle in and out. I'll have pigs cycle in and out during this next batch, because as we talked about, in 3 days I'll be taking some set of pigs to market. But in the meantime, I can also start, maybe seeing if I can get a model together to figure out, does it make sense to hold crop or sell it? Because the thing is, like, if I determine pigs are 50% more profitable, then it becomes like I grow other crops other years for cash, and it could be the same type of crops. If I determine, hey, that sorghum is great, and I can make a lot of money on sorghum, it might make sense to go ahead and do that, but and sell it. But otherwise, what I may start doing is, if the pigs are the most profitable thing, it's like, okay, grow the crops and just let them sit there, because I know long term. And this is, going back, I've had conversations like this before, where this goes beyond farm finances. This just goes to financial behavior and psychology in anything. It's that lack of patience and that lack of living with the math and being comfortable with the math, where people feel like they need to do something, and sometimes waiting and not taking an action is the doing you need to be doing. And the best example we have of that is stock markets around the world. People feel, oh, I need to be buying, I need to be actively buying or selling. No, most of the time, you're going to become much better off if you just sit and do nothing, if you just hold and you let the market do what the market does. This is similar. It'd be foolish, and I'd be fighting against the math if I determine, say, that pigs are 50% more profitable than anything I can do with my crops in selling them, to just not let those crops sit there and basically turn those crops into pigs, because that gives me more money. But, it's then less to do. But what I would need to focus on if I want to be doing something is then, okay, how do I do more of that thing that is more profitable? And that would obviously mean, in that case, more pigs, or we begin an experiment with some other type of animal. And again, at this point, it would likely be cows or sheep. So, anybody want to comment on that? If we get to that point, if people have a preference, hey, I'd love to see cows, I'd love to see sheep. If you're considering another animal, this is what, I'm always open to feedback and hearing from folks what would be fun for them to just see in the videos. I mean, you're being entertained by this by watching it, and if you love little calves or little lambs running around, even though they don't show up as little calves or little lambs, they're all full-grown animals in FS22, but you can be there in your imagination along with me. Let me know, and it could influence my decision, because if I'm on the cusp of I don't know. I'm just going to pick one and I'm going to flip a coin. You know, if I've got 80% of the people saying do sheep, do sheep, do sheep, that can tip the scales. So, alright, I'm really done now. I will see you next time.